everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Olivia Otibra Presents. Today, I am so happy to be joined by Marion and Calum Wilson, where I'll be talking to them about their experience of coming out to family and friends and how they navigated this time of their lives. So this month is Pride Month, so I thought it was a really important time to put this message out there and inspire anybody who would be going through the same thing and who would need any advice on this topic. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves, first of all? Calum?
Yeah, so I'm 24 years old, I live in Glasgow, and I'm currently a postgraduate student.
Marion?
So I'm Marion. I'm 23 at the moment, but I will be 24 when this comes out.
Oh, happy birthday in advance.
Well, yeah. My birthday's on the 24th, so... And I'm currently in Edinburgh, but I'm going to be moving away very soon because I'm starting a master's in Brighton in September. So
amazing. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get straight into the questions, if that's okay, and we can get straight to it. So let me have a look. So my first question would be, tell me about the time that you revealed your sexuality to your loved ones. So how did you first approach this topic, and how did your family and friends react? Who wants to go first?
I don't mind going first.
Calum?
Okay. I think the thing about coming out is it's not just like a one-time thing, like it's a continuous thing, and you feel at different times when you're ready to tell certain loved ones. But I remember telling my mum, she more asked me, she kind of figured it out, and you know, like I think I was 14 at the time, and I wasn't really ready to come out to anyone, so I felt kind of pressured then to kind of say. So at the time I was battling the fact whether I was actually fully gay or if I was just bisexual, blah 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 blah. So it was still figuring myself out, and so she asked me, are you gay? And I was like, ooh, I don't know. And then I told her that I was bi, and I got really upset because I thought this was it. I was getting kicked out of the house. I was going to be ejected from the Wilson household, and it was fine. At first I think she was a bit confused as well, and she ended up telling other members of the family, kind of seeking support, but not realizing that then she was kind of outing me to other people when I wasn't ready. So my dad found out, aunts, uncles, family, friends, and I still wasn't at that point where I could comfortably tell anyone. And at that point I told like a couple of friends, and they didn't really care. I think when you're 13, 14, it's like, it's just whatever. And then my mum told me, don't tell anyone at high school just yet because you're still quite young. And in my head I was like, okay, when I leave high school I'll come out to everyone properly. And so I remember, I think it was like towards the end of high school, so like mid-6th year, I remember like my sister was like doing her hair for like a night out or something, and I was sitting with her and I was like, oh, actually I want to tell you something. And I was like, because you really think it's gonna be a big deal and that people are gonna care a lot. And I was like, actually I'm gay. And then she just was like straightening her hair. She was like, yeah, no. I was like, okay, like, got anything to ask? And it's like, come on, you're friends with like all girls. You've never had a girlfriend. I put 2 and 2 together and I was like, oh, fair enough. And then it was quite weird because I didn't tell my friends. I made new friends by this point and never told them that I was gay or anything. And they kind of figured it out, but they just never asked. And it wasn't until like, I think I'd left high school and it had been a couple of months since I'd left, and I thought I need to tell them. So we had a group chat and I was like drafting this message in the back of my mum's car. And I was like, right, okay, I don't think I'm ready to send it yet, but I'll send it later. And then my mum's car bumped and I hit like the send button by mistake. So I was like, oh, fuck. So, I mean,
only that could happen to you.
And I just was like, so I just kind of threw my phone down and I was like sweating. They literally, they're like, oh, proud of you for telling us. But they cared obviously, but it wasn't a surprise, it wasn't a shock, and it wasn't a big deal. Then it actually made us closer because then they were able to ask me about like who my type was, stuff like that, because it was stuff they avoided because they just knew I wasn't ready. So it's nice to finally open up because nobody actually cares really. It's just more in your head, this kind of anxiety about telling people.
Mhm.
And what
Okay.
about you, Marion? What was your story of coming out to family and friends? Was it kind of as stressful as Callum's, or was it quite an easy thing to do for you?
I think it's so difficult to actually like put it into a narrative, really, because
Yeah.
as Calum said at the start, it's such I'm gonna keep coming out my entire life. Like, it's not something that happened once. It's something
Mhm.
that I have to do with every person I meet, and it's stressful with everyone because you
Mhm.
never know how they're gonna react. And then I think because I identify as bi, and I think I've had to come out multiple times to the same people, just depending on who I was dating when they first met me, for example, which is always just so strange. But yeah, I think the hardest thing really is to come out to yourself. And I think that's why we always make such a big deal out of it, of telling other people, because it's just so hard to like kind of get over the internalized homophobia and just kind of be okay with who you are. So yeah, but then I was very lucky that my process of coming out to myself almost happened out loud with my friends. So like I remember the first time that I came out to someone was like my best friend when we were about like 14, I think. And I do remember just being like, I think I like girls. And
Yeah.
then she was like, cool, maybe I like girls, like who knows? And I was like, yeah, I mean, this is hard. So that was very, very chill. And then I actually don't even remember coming out to most of my friends. One of my friends like brought it up last summer, and she was like, oh, do you remember when you like came out to me? And I was like, actually no. Because it was so chill. Like I think I really just told her like, yeah, I like girls, and she was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. So with my friends it was always nice, and then because it kind of happened so early on, I was able to kind of figure it out with them there, and it was just very, very chill. Coming out to your family is an entire different story though. So it was quite weird because I was out at school very early on,
Okay.
and I was not very open about it, but I was quite open about it. And then I had like my first serious girlfriend when I was 16, and that was in school, and she was going to the same school, so
Okay.
everybody knew about it. Like I went to her prom because she was a year older than me, and then she came to my prom the next year. So so that was kind of chill.
That's so
I mean,
sweet.
yeah, no, so I did have the like cute high school experience with a girlfriend, which was nice. But obviously, I did date a boy before that, and then it was quite weird because people were just like, "Oh my god, now she's gay," and then I had to be like, "No, guys, it's called bisexuality."
And explain it
And,
all, like explain
yeah,
it to people, yeah, because they just
yeah, yeah,
can't for
yeah.
some reason grasp that. Is that fair
I
to
know
say?
people found
Yeah.
that really difficult to understand. So that was
Yeah.
quite hard. I think that was harder for the boy that I dated before than to me, because I was just like, whatever. So yeah, that was a bit weird. But then I actually only came out to my mother when I was 17,
Okay.
which is quite a long, like, I mean, the first time I came out, I was like 13, 14. So it took quite a while because I just was so scared. And I never actually like told her like I'm gay or whatever. I just kind of told her like I have a girlfriend.
Mm.
And by like at that point we had already been dating for like a year. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, my friend, I go over to hers all the time, she never comes over to ours, that's because she's my girlfriend.
Oh. Was
So
it
that was weird. Sorry?
Did your mum have a good reaction? Was she understanding towards that?
She was a bit, it was weird. I think she didn't really know how to react. And I just remember I did it like in the car. Do you know did you guys ever have like serious conversations with your parents in the car? Because it was just easier because you
My
didn't
mum
have to
doesn't
think
have a
them.
car. So
Okay.
it was the bus. It was in front of everyone on the bus for me.
That's funny. I would always like do it in the car because I was like, you can't look at me.
Yeah.
You have to concentrate on the road. So you
Yes.
can't really be angry or you can't do anything like rash. So it was in the car, and then I think she just kind of said like, oh, you like do your little experiments and you'll figure it out. And I was just like, that's not it. So I cried, and that was hard. And so then after that, I don't think she meant it in a bad way, but it was just strange. So then after that, I got scared of coming out to anyone else in my family, because I thought my mom would be the most accepting. So I was just like, I'll do her first and then the rest. But then because she didn't really react the way that I'd wanted her to, I guess, I was just like, okay, well, now I'm just going to stay in the closet forever. So that was hard. But then, so she came out for me to my dad and then told me how he reacted. And apparently all he said was, as long as she's happy, I'm happy. So I kind of wish I had come out to him because I would have loved to hear that in person. But yeah, and then from then on, I just never actually came out to the rest of my family. I just basically stopped hiding, I guess. So it was just like, I think my siblings just figured it out.
Talking about, I think, my ex, and I was like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? And you were like, not exactly. No, I'm bi. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you know, and I felt so bad. But I think it is just, you know, checking our own kind of, I wouldn't say ignorance, because I'm very open to people, but also just learning that, you know, that's not everybody's reality, and being aware of that and approaching people correctly. Is that, you know?
Yeah. And I think because it's just the norm to be straight in this world, that people don't, they just assume, like most people when they meet me assume I'm straight. So it's always, that's why you always have to come out.
Like Marion said, that being straight is the norm. I think then asking questions, do you have a girlfriend? It's weird, but that's kind of often what I feel like at least straight guys do to try and figure it out. Whereas it'd be just much easier if they kind of ask do you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and then you can kind of answer one, or you know.
Yeah, I know. And that's something, like I say to you, Marion, I was so embarrassed because I'm so open with everybody, but it was that just almost, I don't know, would you call it unconscious bias? I mean, you know, and I'm not like, I don't like to think of myself like that. And even now, I'm still really embarrassed because I'm like, that's just, so from now on, I mean, from that experience, so from now on, I will just either, you know, ask, you know, oh, do you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you know, and I'll make sure to kind of ask people that instead of just automatically assuming, you know.
Yeah, but also like, it's not like, I don't ever take it personally if someone thinks I'm straight. Like it's not, I don't feel attacked or anything. I'm just like, no, this is fine because that's how you grew up. But you know,
I'm definitely going to be more conscious of that. I was going to ask, actually, so obviously, Marion, you had a really, can I say, positive experience with the males in your family. So your dad was really supportive, but Calum, with you, especially as another male, what was your experience of the male reaction in your family?
I actually kind of stopped. So the kind of similar, I told my mum, my sister, and just stopped there. I thought, you know, my mum's already told me everyone, so like they can just work out for themselves. And my dad knows, but we've never ever spoken about it. It's never been brought up, apart from a time I can barely remember. I think I was like 14, and my dad came to my room when I was staying at his, and because obviously my mum and dad are divorced, and I was staying at his place, and then he came to my room and was like, if you ever want to talk about it, and then he just shut the door, and that was it. And then we never spoke about it since. So I think he was just very, very uncomfortable, but he has never had to deal with that. I think like his background just is very I wouldn't say he wasn't, because he texted my mum saying like, I just want him to be happy, blah blah blah. I don't care who he's, you know, what his sexuality is. It'd be nice to have heard that from him rather than him texting my mum that. But I think it's just this kind of, I think he's got his own fears, like what will be said and what you'll hear. And I don't really know. I mean, it's just, maybe I should pluck up some courage and speak to him about it. But then I'm the same. I'm like, God, what will he say? Like. So it's very, I find it much harder to come out to males in general, because I feel like you're not sure how they will react. I think for me personally, I feel like women are generally more supportive, but then I think males I don't know. I just feel like I feel very uncomfortable telling them, and I just would rather not, unless I kind of have to.
And maybe it's a fear that they maybe will say the wrong thing. Maybe they don't want to, say the wrong thing to you or offend you or, upset you in any way by saying the wrong thing. Would
Yeah.
that be fair to maybe presume, or?
Yeah, probably. And they've always been supportive when I have events. So in workplaces, when eventually I have, they've not cared. But I think there's just this, you're scared that you might come across somebody that's homophobic or somebody that, this kind of, I don't really know how to describe it. You just kind of are threatening their masculinity a bit. I think coming out, you think of it, because obviously celebrities and stuff, they come out and that's it. Like everyone knows, it's all the press, everyone knows. So you think of it as this like, and especially in programs, they come out once and then everyone knows. But actually coming out is a really fragmented process. It's very much, you tell some people, you don't tell some, you tell a few others, and then it's the new people you meet, you constantly have to think, right, I need to tell them eventually. And I find it very, especially in a professional environment, when I've done work experience, I was really like, I would never ever, I can't imagine myself ever coming out. But I know I eventually would, but I think especially in journalism, which was when I was doing like work experience at the Daily Record and other sites, it was mainly men, and they were more in their kind of groups, and I just found like, oh, I would never come out. I couldn't see myself ever coming out to these men, but then, it takes time, I guess.
I think that's another one of my questions though. So do you feel like now, especially now, you would like to think that we've progressed in society? Do you think it should just be one of those things where you can just, again, talk about it to employers? Like there shouldn't really be a stigma where you feel like you can't feel comfortable joining a group of men at work or, discussing it with people. So what do you think could change there in the way that people maybe approach us in the workplace? Or
I think it's hard because I think it's something that's just it's gonna take ages. Like, is it so, I think homophobia is so ingrained in our culture, really, that like, because sometimes I think about like, because I definitely struggle with a lot of internalized homophobia still to this day. I'm still working on it, even though I am very confident in my sexuality. But it's just because growing up, you're like bombarded with messages that basically tell you being gay is bad and it's different and it's shameful and all of that. But it's so insidious. Like, it's just like, I don't even have like, I mean, I have a few examples, but I mean, like, most of them are just little things that you pick up when you grow up. And so it's just like, I wish we could be in a world where it's not a big deal, but before that happens, it's gonna take a very, very long time, I think.
I think as well, what's important is improving representation in medias of gay characters, I guess you could say. So I think a lot of the time, especially in comedies, there's always a token, very camp gay character who gives fashion advice and this, and quite, they're usually kind of the support. But I think there's been some avenues made to try and improve that. So there was the film Love, Simon, which the central plot was coming out. I actually haven't seen that, but I think more mainstream media would benefit from creating openly gay characters and sort of the nuances of that.
Yeah, I mean, I studied film and I talk about LGBT representation all the time.
I was just about to say, actually, I can see Marion nodding because you write about this a lot and I see your views on films, right? Yeah.
I know, I wrote my entire dissertation on this. So I'm like, I have so much to say. But I do think, I'm not going to go on a tangent, or I'll try. But definitely representation is such a huge thing. And I think that would help a lot because like what you see in the media is like, because the media doesn't necessarily, I mean, it kind of mirrors our society, but mostly it kind of just influences it.
Yeah.
You can see that with like one of the first gay films that came out in the 80s. I don't know all the details, but Cruising, that film came out, which was very homophobic. And then actually the violence against gay men like spiked after that film came out. So it's like, I mean, there you go. So I do think the media plays like a huge, huge role in it. And we are getting better. And I think Booksmart is amazing in the way that it deals with her sexuality. That was so good. But that's like the only example I have, literally.
Really?
Again, yeah, Love, Simon is about coming out. In TV shows, it's always about coming out. That's like their main thing. It's like that's their storyline. They're the gay character. And then usually it's like you've got the storyline that they've come out, and then what do? They die, or they're miserable. Like there's literally a trope that's called bury your gays, because in like the past few years, so many gay characters have been killed on TV, like to a point that's like, it's just ridiculous. Watching that growing up is horrible, because I literally, for the longest time, when I first realized I might be gay, I literally, like, I remember being really young and being like, okay, so if I like girls, that means I'm going to be miserable. Like, that's it. There was no alternative, because I had never seen an alternative. To me, it was like, if you're a lesbian, you're sad. You're probably going to kill yourself, or someone's going to kill you. Because that's it. That's all we see.
Yeah. So it almost puts you off even more. It makes you feel more uncomfortable to just be your authentic self. And that's the opposite of what we, talk about in society. Actually, this is probably a good question to ask off the back of what we're talking about then. So in this modern society, how necessary now, looking back, so obviously you guys were 14, 16 when you came out to Family and Friends. So going back 10 years and looking at it now, how necessary do you feel coming out really is in terms of an announcement, if that makes sense? So do you feel like people should be pressured into making that announcement, or do you feel like, again, it should just be a topic that comes naturally within conversation?
In a perfect world, I wish it didn't have to be an announcement, and I'm kind of, a part of me is glad that I never made an announcement out of it. But then at the same time, I'm also kind of sad that I didn't make an announcement out of it, because that means that, again, a lot of people who know I'm gay now, I'm not the one that came out to them. And that's actually quite hard, because I'm like, oh, I feel like that should have been something that I should be the one to choose when I tell people. And it's just, again, because we live in a world that doesn't see like being gay as, being straight is like the norm. You kind of have to make an announcement out of it in a way. Like, it is something that you have to announce to people.
It's quite difficult to really pinpoint whether, because you'd like said, I think making an announcement is quite, I don't know about anyone else, but I just think it puts a lot of pressure on it, whereas I try to make it as natural as possible when I can. So in conversation, I'll drop I just maybe say like, oh, I was dating this boy, or I'm seeing this boy this week, or try and like make these obvious hints, and obviously most people pick it up, and then just hope nothing's really made of it. But I think sometimes you have to make that announcement. Maybe people that are, like I said, the guy from work that was just really had no tact in going around asking, so it just kind of had to be a case of like, look, I am gay, and there's just this kind of like, but then eventually my thoughts are all over the place too, because like I really wish I didn't have to make an announcement, but then like how else would people know, I guess, because obviously like being straight is the norm.
Sometimes I feel like, because coming to terms with your sexuality, with like coming out to yourself, is so hard, and it's just horrible. Like, I could speak about just that for like hours. That when you come out to others, sometimes it's actually quite validating when it is an announcement, because you're like, oh my God, I've been struggling with this for ages. And I have had times when, I've come out and people would just be like, oh, okay, cool. And then a part of me is like, okay, relieved. But then at the same time, like, but I've been hating myself about this for years. And now all you do is just like, yeah, cool. And I'm like, no, wait, can you please validate my experience? Because this was horrible.
I actually I haven't thought back to this for a long time, but I just remember the internalized hatred and homophobia I had when I was like 13, 14. It's something I didn't like to think about, but like when I said earlier, it's not a choice. And I just remember like being so young and just thinking, why me? Like, why does this have to happen to me? Like, why can't I just be straight? And just kind of wishing and praying and doing all the different things. It's like hoping that would go away. And like, I just I just, it's quite hard to think back to that, because I wish I could go back and tell my little 13-year-old chubby boy self that, you know, it's gonna be fine, you're gonna like, don't worry, like nobody's gonna care. I think as well, like in my head, like, I'm never gonna get married, I'm never gonna have, like kids, and this is what I was told was normal. But now that actually I'm in my like 20s, I actually think I really don't want that. I actually really want to just have a good career. I want to live my life. I don't want to so I think thinking about that your future, I think coming to terms with being gay when you're 13, 14, or whatever age, is you really have to then sit down and think about your future, and you really, in a way that other people don't have to, because you then have to start thinking about, like, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, and and your future kind of, like, there's a little moment where it just kind of shatters, like,
yeah,
to me at least, because I was raised Catholic, and in my mind I was like, I'm gonna have a nice husband, and we're gonna have kids, and I'm gonna have like a beautiful church wedding. And then, yeah, the moment when I was like, oh, maybe I prefer girls and I would prefer being with a girl, that kind of just, that meant, okay, well then I can't have any of those things. So I will never get married, even though it was legal already in Belgium. But even then, no, marriage is between a man and a woman. So it's like, I'll never get married. I'll never have a family. I'll never have that beautiful little white picket fence home. Because that was like the only option in my mind. And then the other option, like, it never even crossed my mind that I could get married to a woman and have children with a woman. That was not an option. It was like, either you do the straight life and you're miserable, or you're probably gonna die. Like, that sounds so intense, but it's just like, that was it. Because being a happy lesbian, being a happy gay person, in my mind, in my like 12-year-old brain, did not even exist. Like, that was not an option. And yeah, I do remember like literally praying the gay away and being like, I don't want to do this, and I'll just go with a man and it'll be fine. And then you kind of realize, like, no.
So society kind of makes you feel like you have to choose. It's like a sacrifice, almost. With you, like we were talking about the films, you know, they're not happy endings. There's no positivity in half of these films. So did you kind of feel like it was like a sacrifice?
Yeah, I think because there's so few, I think this goes back to why representation is important, because I couldn't ask anyone. I didn't know anyone else. I didn't meet any other really openly gay people until I moved to university. I moved to Edinburgh for university. I never really came across from where I was living. So it was just this, you couldn't really base your experience on anything else. And I didn't really expose myself to media that dealt with the issue. I think what I did a lot was actually turn to online sources. So like people writing articles about their experience. And it was really uplifting to see actually like articles and people saying, you know, like the initial period of like coming to terms with sexuality is probably pretty much the worst. And then from there on out, it's fine. So it was really uplifting and kind of filled me a bit more optimism, because it really, like, at the time my mental health was like awful, and I was only about 13, 14, but like the self-hatred I had was like, couldn't compare it to anything else that I felt since then.
Have you ever experienced homophobic abuse? I know, Marion, you just said you had an instance last year. Have you ever actually experienced homophobic abuse? And if so, how did you overcome this, and how did it make you feel?
Well, I'm quite lucky. I've never had like proper abuse. Like, I've had people like yell at me on the street, or like if I'm with a girl, that they're just like lesbians or other war slurs. So that happens, but never anything like too bad. But then it's just, again, it's all those like little all those little like homophobic comments, like here and there. But
how do you deal with, sorry, Calum, sorry, actually, have you dealt with that?
It's similar in that I've not really had proper abuse. One of I think a friend in high school made a few comments, and I ignorance as well, like people that have been ignorant and not really understood, so thinking it's a choice or something. And then there's, I think, actually my study abroad as well, the sweet mate that was very religious, he was talking about, he was like, you know, I don't have a problem with gay people, and you're just talking in general. It's like, but I do think, you know, it's their choice and they're going to burn in hell for it. And I was like, oh my
Always the
God.
case. I just hate when there's always a but, you know, there's
Yeah.
always a but to that. And it's like, you know, I'm not racist, but I think, you know, I'm not homophobic, but I think, you know.
Yeah.
I still see that today. That's like, I'm not homophobic, but I don't want them to like flaunt it in my face.
Yeah,
I'm just like, but you flaunt your heterosexual lifestyle in my face all the time.
Yeah,
so
you just winded up on someone in the club last week, so
yeah.
I don't want to see that either. It's not about being gay. Yeah,
it's
so
just like, it's just kind of reinforced that. So it's, I don't know. I think having that conversation with the family, especially, you know, because now I'm having, like, we've had the conversation about sexuality, and now it's more about race with my family, because they're just in their own little bubble and they've not really had to been exposed, and now they've got like a gay son, and now I'm hitting them with like, so the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm trying to like get to educate them on that, and I think it's a bit too much for them, but like I'm trying, and it's having that hard conversation.
it really is.
And it's not working, but I'm getting there.
I guess that's just human nature, right? We all have different experiences, and this is what I've been trying to kind of say to people this week when I've been educating them. Is I'm not here to change your mind or your opinion. I just want you to acknowledge, you know, that everyone has a different experience, and acknowledge and empathize with people, and be willing to educate and have those conversations with people that you know or that you don't know. Because I don't think that anyone should be so solid in their stance that they never change their opinion on things. But also, I'm not here to force people to change their opinion. Does that make sense? I just want an acknowledgement, you know? I think you said that earlier, Marion, like an acknowledgement of my own experience or your own experience, you know? But that's a big topic this week as well. So my last question actually is, what advice, and I think this is one of the most important ones, so what advice would you give to someone struggling right now with their sexuality or coming out? Who wants to go first?
I'd say the most important thing is take your time. Like, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because one of the things that I struggled with the most coming out to myself was I just didn't understand it. And in my mind, it was like, you either have to like boys or girls. And then when I was like, but I think I kind of like both, then it was like, it was just so hard. And I think for a really long time, I really beat myself up for the fact that I just couldn't decide, like just couldn't make up my mind. And then when I was like, oh, okay, I like girls, I'm going to just like stick with that one. And then it was just like, no, this is just, oh my God. And I was just so stressed. And I think I just put so much pressure on myself to label myself as soon as I could. And that was very hard. So take your time. Because sexuality is so complicated, and it's a spectrum. It kind of just, it does, like, it can change. Like, it's just really, it's really hard. So yeah, like if I could just talk to my younger self, I'd be like, chill out, like you'll be fine, take your time, and also just like know that it will, like, this sounds cliche, but it will be okay, and it does get better, and you will find people that accept you for sure.
I agree. I agree. I think I agree that definitely. I think you need to like, these things don't last. I think we're saying earlier about like being a teenager, just everything seems like, oh my God, like this is my life, and that's just not the case. Things change so rapidly that it's just. But I think my advice as well would be, is because of like there's so many online resources now, is seek them out. Seek out not even guys, but people's own experiences, stuff like even videos like this where you can relate to these people and try and find experience, and then it can alleviate those anxieties. And then perhaps you know, there's online messaging boards that you could maybe join and write about your experience, get some practice about coming out, and you know, or even writing down how like your kind of like feelings, I guess you want to say, or like how just kind of express yourself in a way. And even there's also helplines as well, maybe like speaking about your sexuality can even give you that practice to say I am, because saying those I am gay, I remember like when I was younger, like, saying those words was I can, you kind of like choke you, but I can't do it. But I think I did that. I think actually when I was very young, I think I called up, I can't remember which helpline it was, but I remember being like, I was like, oh, I don't know what to do, blah blah. Like almost like, help me, I'm gay. Like, and just being like, how do I like how do I think I said like, I think I might be. I remember going so red in the face just over the phone, being like, I think I might be bisexual. And she's like, that's fine. Like just getting that practice and saying it out loud. That was for me. That helped a lot.
Yeah, I think the first time I said it out loud, I immediately burst into tears. Literally.
Guys!
Yeah, I cried a lot.
Because it's just, there's so much. So yeah, I like that. And I think also
Overwhelming.
there's a big thing in the like LGBT community of like making your own family and finding your own family. And I think it's so important to, as you said at the start, Calum, of just seeking out like your people, like going to, if you can, I mean, online, watch videos, like talk to others, go to events. The first time I went to Pride was like magical. Like it was literally like, I was just like, oh my God, I'm like not alone. Seeing happy gay people for the first time in my life. This is magical, literally. So I think that helps to like, just find a community.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for joining me today. I'm sure that's going to be very helpful to hopefully hundreds of people out there, if not thousands. I'm going to try and promote this across every platform I have. So thank you so much for sharing your story and joining me today. If you do want to contact Marion or Calum for any advice or just to check in or any words of wisdom, Marion is at Marion Jockmans on Instagram, and her website is marionjockmans.wordpress.com. She writes some great articles on LGBTQ issues, films, art. They're just great. So give her a follow on Instagram and WordPress. And you can follow Calum also on Instagram, again, for some great photography and just, again, advice.